And welcome back to the Customer Edge. I'm Butch Stearns of the Pulse Network. This edition of the Customer Edge, sponsored by SAP, is focused on customer service, and we are presenting the 5 clever customer service survival tips. Kai Petzelt of SAP is in studio also, and we welcome in John Carrol from the Service Council. Hi, John. How are you?
Pleasure to be here.
Now, you're the CEO of the Service Council. What is the Service Council?
The Service Council exists to present an information and a community platform where service and customer support executives can come together in the spirit of sharing innovative ideas on how they can improve their business in supporting customers.
So you're the one that's out there with the organization, if I'm in customer service, that I've been looking for forever.
We're trying to be that person, trying to be that organization.
And what do you, so let's, before Kai dives right into you with a couple of the tips you want to focus on, what do you think of our 5 customer service survival tips?
Oh, I think they're vital. We're going to be talking about avoiding being reactive and more so getting towards a proactive model in the multi-channel experience. But the 5 tips you outlined are right in line with what our research is showing.
And Kai, we're glad to have John here for a lot of different reasons, but when it comes to this subject and these particular tips, I mean, he clearly is, and his organization, a thought leader and the perfect person to have on the show, isn't he?
Exactly. I couldn't be happier to have you on the show, John. I think our joint work within the past 2 years or so shows that you're the perfect candidate to talk about some of the topics here today.
My pleasure.
Let's dive right in, though.
Sure.
Be consistent across channels is one of the topics that we want to talk about, and I think this really goes off with a very meaty topic. From your experience, why is it so important, and what does it mean to be consistent across channels and customer service?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick story. We obviously, the importance of understanding the customer journey and how the customer interacts with you, what their choice of channel is, that's well documented, its importance, right? You think about customer journey mapping and understanding your customer. Bob Johnson, the Chief Service and IT Officer of Sprint, is an advisory board member of the Service Council. And at and around the turnaround when Dan Hesse became CEO, they started to try and understand their customers better. And so what they did, they went out and asked them what channel of choice, and what they found was that customers were calling into their contact center at a rate 2x their competitors. Verizon, AT&T, et cetera. And so the primary reason for that was billing disputes. So billing related errors, disputes, discrepancies, so on and so forth. As a result of this, it led them to introduce their fixed rate monthly plan, $79 per month, which is a key differentiator for Sprint. So understanding the customer is obviously important. Now, having said that, being consistent across all the channels, that becomes the challenge, because you think about some of the more traditional channels, phone, telephone, email, et cetera, they are more human related, right? Whereas some of the new and fresher channels, social, customer communities, et cetera, they start to become more technology enabled. And so there's a different experience felt across those different channels. And that becomes the issue, the complexity of the different types of channels.
So that's exactly what I wanted to double down on, which is the increasing complexity of the growing number of channels, and coupled with the expectation of the customer that all those channels and the interaction across channels and beyond channels is seamless, is integrated, and is just one customer experience. At the end of the day, I would argue that the customer couldn't care less about which channels exist to reach out to customer service, right? I think we're almost moving towards a channel-less experience. That is, I want to reach out to the company and get my things resolved no matter what the channel is.
Correct. Correct, but now when you start to add in all the different demographic challenges within your customer audience, there are some that are more reliant on some of the traditional channels versus some of the more forward and more advanced, newer channels that are coming to fruition. Now, our research shows and indicates that rather than being consistent in the experience felt depending on the channel, you need to think about being consistent with the core tenets that you have as an organization. So are you customer-centric? Are you a customer advocate? How immediate are you in your response to customers? Time to resolution, first call resolution, all things that are all important as far as helping support the customer in satiating whatever need they have.
So you mentioned a couple of customer service interaction channels, John, and it's interesting to see that some channels are obviously rising in importance, whereas others may be declining over time. What do you see from your research? What are your customers and your clients telling you? Which are the channels of choice that are rising in importance over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did a multi-part benchmark series, survey-driven research that we conduct around customer experience. And it included voice of the channel, it included multi-channel experience, and customer experience transformation. In the multi-channel effort, we found that most customers are engaging on 2 to 3 channels, with telephone and email being the top 2. Now, in a follow-up question, we asked, what is the rising channel of choice? And organizations that responded had indicated that social is the top rising channel as far as level of activity on that particular channel.
Okay, so that's why be social as one of our 5 clever customer service survival tips is why it's here.
Sure.
Maybe to wrap things up here, talking about this first segment, or this first tip, I should say, is share with us, why do you think consistency is so important in the first place?
Yeah, the way that the question was phrased originally was consistent customer service, and I would say rephrase that and maybe add a word, creating a memorable experience. There's a book called The Experience Economy by authors Gilmore and Pine. This was written several years back, but it talks about basically the evolution of commoditization in our world, right? Starting with raw materials, then consuming goods, and then services. Services are starting to be commoditized. And it claims that only those organizations that create experiences will win. And those that stage experiences almost as if you're a movie or you're in theater and you're demonstrating a particular picture, if you will. So I think there's certainly a well recognition as far as the importance of being consistent, but also creating memorable experiences. Now, the challenge becomes the seamlessness, right? How do you deliver that consistent experience across those channels? And that's where internal border patrolling and making sure you overcome the challenges of collaboration. In some organizations, web and social is dominated or owned by marketing. In other organizations, service owns telephone, right? So how do you eliminate the borders between multi-divisional collaboration? And you know, I could tell a quick story about that, buying a purse for my wife. This isn't going to be aired, right? Before Christmas?
Yes.
But I was buying a purse for my wife for Christmas, and I went to the website, found it, called into the store, a local mall. They said, we don't have your product. I said, oh, could you help me find it? They said, go to our website. I said, okay, where do I go? I don't know. I don't shop on the web that often. So you got to think about the different channels as far as how your customers engage, because if you don't have knowledge of how that experience goes across other channels, then you're going to lose the customer.
You were watching the Customer Edge. We're talking about 5 clever customer service survival tips. Kai Petzelt on the far side from SAP. John Carrol is the CEO of the Service Council. John, a couple minutes left in this segment.
Sure.
What are your, so again, talk a little bit about the Service Council, how you interact with your people, and what are some of the pain points in what you're focusing on? Be consistent across channels and always be proactive. What are some of the pain points that your members tell you about? What are the common things you hear?
Yeah, I think what we strive to evangelize within our community and through our research is that service, being customer-centric, it's not a line of business issue. It's not relegated to service executives and support executives. It's an organizational-wide philosophy that needs to be embraced from the top down. And so leading organizations that we're talking to have embraced that culture, right, that culture. But there's obviously a requirement to change in order to get to that. So I think executive leadership and tasking your executive team with transforming to be more customer-centric is a key step in embracing that service-centric culture.
You know, Kai, I think that's a key point. As we were preparing this show, we talked about it all the time. Customer service is a line of business, but this is not a line of business problem. Correct. Because we always hear this expression, kill the silos. But really, when it comes to customer service, it is a company-wide thing. It's a mentality that has to stem from the top, doesn't it?
It absolutely has to stem from the top, and the customer experience is really key. If the customer is not satisfied, then he doesn't come back to bring you more of his money or her money. And this is what it's really all about, what it comes down to. Only if the customer is satisfied with the experience that he or she had he will return. And he will tell his friends and family about the positive experience.
And a final thought from you, John, about this. I think we often think customer service as B2C, but clearly there is a B2B component when it comes to customer service too. So these principles apply on both levels, don't they?
Oh, they certainly do. Yeah, we did a case study with the Chief Customer Officer of Yahoo, and he talked about basically leveraging some of the core tenets within a B2C environment in a B2B environment, that B2B organizations need to understand the reactive nature of supporting customers through social channels, right? And that's more prevalent in B2C organizations. However, B2B organizations are starting to embrace that as well. You think about Yahoo, right? They have 700 million customers that subscribe to their free email service, right? And they offer free support on that. So it's entirely a cost-centric. It's not a profit lever for them, that particular part of their model. But the impact that the experience of those customers have using their free email impacts business-related relationships, right? A lot of their free email clients are those that use their business advertising services. And so they can directly tie that experience to a paid engagement and their overall profit.
I would argue, Kai, that it's even more relevant in B2B because your relationships almost need to be stronger. They're longer term, deeper relationships and repetitive relationships.
Exactly. Not only are they deeper, but the competition is stronger than ever before. That means more and more customers and companies, even in the B2B space, have more choices than ever before, right? And if they're not satisfied with their service experience, guess what? They will be gone before you know it.
Right. Yeah. So, John, a final plug for you, if we will, the Service Council. How do I get a hold of you if I want to be part of your organization? How does it work?
Sure. So you can come to our website at theservicecouncil.com or servicecouncil.com. Once a year, we host our Smarter Services Executive Symposium. This current year, we'll be hosting it in San Diego, March 10th through the 12th. We welcome 200 senior leadership members into the mix, and it's very case study driven. So you can find us there, and you can also find us on social channels at Twitter at @TServiceCouncil.
San Diego, too. You can spend some time in San Diego, Kai. What do you say?
I think we're in.
Well, you're a West Coast guy anyway. So, John, thanks for being a part of this show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, Kai.
All right, John Carrol from the Service Council. Time for us to take our next break here on the Customer Edge. When we come back, we will be joined by Bill Ziska, a director for Deloitte Digital, who's going to talk more about our 5 clever customer service survival tips as we take this break. Here's Mark Freed of JD Events. You hear horror stories, you hear success stories about customer experience, and Mark has a specific positive customer service experience while purchasing running shoes.
So just tell me about a recent customer service experience that you've had, either positive or negative, and how that affected your relationship with the company.
Okay, well, I had a positive experience about a week ago. In my little neighborhood of Fairfield, Connecticut, there's an athletic shoe factory. I think they have a couple of outlets, and I spent a lot of money on ASICS running shoes. Loved them, was so happy to have them, and the third time wearing them, they started to fall apart. And I went back to the athletic shoe factory, and I was expecting to, number one, have an argument with them, and I was starting to hate ASICS. But as soon as I walked in, they looked at them and said, "Oh, so sorry, Mr. Freed, this is something that shouldn't have happened," and they just switched it out right away. They gave me a brand new pair, and all of a sudden, I actually like the athletic shoe factory, and I like ASICS again, and I like my new shoes. So it was a positive experience.